What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so let's talk about the Bad Boy Pistons. The Bad Boy Pistons, of course, won back-to-back NBA championships in 89 and 90. Almost three-peated. In 88, 89, and 90. I believe they went to 5 consecutive Eastern Conference Finals from 87 to 91. There are even some who believe that David Stern and the NBA conspired to break up the Bad Boy Pistons because of the threat they played in holding back what should have been the era of Michael Jordan. That's just a theory put out there. Anyway, ringleader Isiah Thomas stated in an interview that he believes that the Bad Boy Pistons would be just as dominant today if they were playing in this era. Matter of fact, Isiah Thomas said, quote, "A lot of teams wouldn't get 100 points, I tell you that. If your objective is to take 53-point shots against us, you're going to miss 40 of them. And the 40 that you missed, those are fast break layups for us. Those are like turnovers. You're talking about defending the perimeter. We could all guard the perimeter. We weren't getting beaten off the dribble. Now, maybe once or twice somebody would beat us off the dribble. But for the most part, I wasn't getting beaten off the dribble. Dumas wasn't getting beaten off the dribble. Robin ain't getting beat off the dribble. Sally ain't getting beat off the dribble. And this is what I know. I'm beating all these cats off the dribble. I'm laying it up. I'm Tony Parker right now. I'm Kyrie Irving. I'm going to the hole and making layups. And if I'm not making layups, then I'm dropping dimes. I think I would do well, and I think our team defensively would be a juggernaut in this era." Now, this is how I feel. Okay, I don't know about how you guys, and this is how I feel, right? And everybody's entitled to their opinion. I think he has a great point about their perimeter defense. Joe Dumas, lockdown defender. Dennis Rodman, especially that version of Dennis Rodman, the back-to-back defensive player of the year, 89-90, or was it 90-91? Whatever the case may be. That version of Dennis Rodman, yeah. Great post and perimeter defender. Best defender in the league. Isiah Thomas was not a great defender, okay? But I also don't agree with people who say that he was a bad defender. He wasn't bad. He just was average. He was average. But you had Spider Sally on that team, great defender. And not just that you just had. It's not that they just had great individual defenders. They were a great team, defensive team. Communication, everybody on the same accord. Effort was always there. The guys played hard, and they were physical. Okay, which obviously they would have to tone down. But even with that, I think it's going to be a problem for them. I think that if they were playing today, even toning things down a little bit, they would foul a lot, which means that players would get in foul trouble. In particular, I'm thinking Rodman, maybe Joe Dumas too, but especially Rodman, Bill Laimbeer, who I'm going to go into a little bit later, which means that they give up a lot of free throws. So I think that's something to be said about that. I agree with him when he said he would get a lot of fast break layups and scores. I agree with that. They're going to need them because while I do believe they'd be a great defensive team, I think they'd be the best defensive team in the league. But their offense may sometimes be a problem, which would be why they would need to limit teams to under 100 points. Matter of fact, I believe the Bad Boy Pistons were the first team in NBA history, at least in modern NBA history, since the advent of the shot clock. I believe they're the first team to hold opponents under 100 points per game for a season on average. I think they were the first team to do that. Like I said, I'm not counting before the shot clock, or it may even be in the modern era, but they were the first team to do it. But anyway, yeah, they were a great, historically great defensive team. And like I said, I think they would increase. I think they would do it in today's era. Like I said, I think they would have some issues offensively. Now, because I mean, outside of Isiah Thomas, especially after they lost Adrian Dantley, who exactly are guys that could score consistently for them? I know they have Isiah Thomas. Joe Dumars could score, obviously. You got Vinnie Johnson. You have Mark Aguirre. The other guys kind of need to be set up to score, or they score by accident, or they score, their standard, ways of scoring, layups, dunks. They usually got to be set up by someone else, like Isiah Thomas or Joe Dumars, to be in position to score. So I think offensively, the Pistons might average something like a. Remember how Miami was a really good defensive team a couple of years ago, but they struggled with scoring? I think that Detroit would be a little bit like that, but I think they would score a little bit more than that. And their defense would be better. I think they would probably give up like 100 points a night in today's NBA and score maybe like 112, right? Now that's a 12-point disparity, but we look at the fact you got teams averaging 120, 125 points. You see my point? I think the guy that had to make the biggest adjustment would be Bill Laimbeer. Because I think what teams would do is attack him with dribble penetration. Because he's not a fleet-footed guy, you know what I'm saying? I think they would try to make him have to go after and try to guard quicker players, kind of like what they do with Rudy Gobert, you know what I'm saying? And Rudy Gobert is not the fastest guy. And I think also with the way the game is played, Bill Laimbeer, who was a strong rebounder back in the 80s, probably wouldn't be as strong because he'd be on the perimeter all the time. He's going to be more pushed out because that's the way they play the game today. Now, having said that, one thing that he was strong with back then that you rarely saw was he was a good outside shooter. Remember, this is a guy, Bill Laimbeer, that once held the NBA record for most three-pointers in the game in the finals with 5. Back in, I think he did in 1990, I think it was. Was it 90? Whatever year it was. I know it was during the finals. But so I think Bill Laimbeer had the potential to be a great outside shooter. I mean, he was good in the era he played in, but I think he'd be even better today. So I think he'd be a good outside shooting big man. Physical. When you're coming right at him, a decent defender. But I think he would struggle a little bit with today's game. Dennis Rodman would still be a beast in my opinion. I could see Dennis developing a okay, adequate 3-point shot from spots. You know what I mean? I could see him doing that. I could see the worm maybe shooting around 35% from three if he really worked on it religiously. But what I see him being is more of a roamer on defense. While Isiah and Joe Dumars are guarding the perimeter, I could see, a guy like Dennis roaming around the baselines, being a tremendous help defender, coming for the weak side blocks and stuff like that. But more importantly, with his rebounding efforts on the offensive glass, that would give the Pistons extra possessions and help them out as far as on cold shooting nights. But I think that Piston team will be great. First of all, the Eastern Conference is not that stacked. I mean, they're not that stacked. And you really don't have a couple of really good teams. Cleveland, of course, what are they, 25-4, just killing the league right now. Boston, killing the league. Then, of course, you got teams like the Bucks. Who am I forgetting? I'm not forgetting somebody. But anyway, the East isn't extremely strong. So I can see the Detroit Pistons winning 60-plus games every year. And in today's NBA, yeah, I could see them winning title. I could see them do. I think they'll be great. And there was still a deep team, and they had a great bench. And that bench could differentiate between the margins as far as winning games. Because even if the starters are struggling to score, even if Isiah Thomas is having a bad night, or Joe Dumars having a bad night, right? With Vinny Johnson coming off the bench, you know what I'm saying? Or, depending upon whether it's Mark Aguirre in the starting lineup or whether you got Adrian Dantley. I'm just going to go with Adrian Dantley, okay? I'm going to go with Adrian Dantley. Now, I know Adrian is a guy that kind of had the ball in his hands a lot, but be that as it may, he'd be an unstoppable scorer in today's NBA. I think he would have a three-point shot. And, I think that, well, you know what? Now that I think about it, maybe it's better than this Mark Aguirre, just for chemistry reasons. And that's Isaiah's boy. So I'm going to go with Mark Aguirre. But, yeah, I think they'd be a great team, man. Absolutely. I think they would be phenomenal. The only problem is, like I said before, is I think they would struggle a little bit with their post defense. But in this era, perimeter defense is more important. I do think they would be a good team guarding the three, but you can't guard deep threes. It's almost impossible. But they won't really have a lot of guys going by. I agree with that. Their perimeter defense would be phenomenal. But I do think they would get in foul trouble. And also, I don't think they would be a great three-point shooting team. I think they'd be better. I mean, Joe Dumars would be great. Even if the other guys, shot threes, they got more acclimated to taking them. For the era he played in, Isiah was not a great three-point shooter. If anything, he was a little below average or average. So we'll see, We'll see about that. But I think they'd be great, though. I damn sure think they'd be great. I mean, hell, they're the only team in the history of the NBA that Jordan played against that contained him. They didn't stop him, but they contained him. So if they could contain Michael Jordan for the most part, I have a hard time believing there's guys in today's league that they're going to magically, destroy the Pistons. Nah, I don't see that. And one last point I want to make, because I don't want to ramble too much in this one. Isiah Thomas is 100% correct about how he could dominate in today's NBA. With no real big men down low, he's going to get a lot of easy layup opportunities, uncontested layups. So that field goal percentage is going to go way up. If he's shooting 45% back then, he's shooting 48, 49% this time. He's shooting that in this era because it's just so much easier to score. His one-on-one skills are going to be probably second only to Kyrie Irving. He's going to be right in that category. He's going to be an unstoppable one-on-one scorer. But at the same time, he could play like a Chris Paul as far as getting guys around him in position to score. And as far as pass the basketball, he could be like a John Stockton too. So he's going to be even better. If he was averaging 19 points and 9 assists back then, in today's era, he's averaging 25 and 12. Easy. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.